Good morning, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order for the Polk County Board of Commissioners for Tuesday, August 26th. Commissioner Mordhorst is excused. We do have a quorum. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next up is for comments for items not on this agenda.
Yep. Thank you. You do want me to sit here, correct?
Yes, please.
All right, thank you.
Name and address for the record.
Thank you. My name is Bill Farr, Farr. I live at 264 Nesmith Road in Rickreall, and I have lived there almost 3 years. First of all, good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to be here and speak for just a couple of minutes and say a couple of things and ask a couple of questions. I was here about a year ago and discussed an issue to do with an odor that was coming from the lagoon at the dairy farm. And I was told at that time, and in all honesty, I don't remember if it was in a board meeting or off to a side. I know for sure I talked to Commissioner Mordhorst and yourself as well, I believe, but excuse me. I was told at that time, well, yeah, there is an odor. It's from the Maduri farm who continued to use the lagoon by permit after the dairy farm had closed down. And I was also told that, well, about May or June of next year, it'll be not permitted any longer beyond that, so the odor will go away. And I think to some degree it has, at least in regard to the Maduri farm. I don't know if they're still dumping. I don't know if that is taking place or if they're abiding by what was the permit, as I was told, and have quit dumping in there. However, since that time, there's been still a terrific odor that occurs. And I don't know if you're aware of it. I don't know if anyone else has said anything. I don't know the history of the lagoon. So I don't know, the original permitting authorization or anything like that, other than what I have heard by talking to people. So it's not thorough research. And I was told that it was permitted for the dairy and that the subsequent allowance of different entities to dump in there is by permit. And then I also understand that one of those that is permitted is an animal waste permit. I don't know how long that is there for, but my sense is that that is the issue that is causing the problem, because the odor that is obnoxious, in fact, it's terrific. In fact, it's worse than what was there with the farm. Smells like animal waste, like dog poop. It's very offensive. First, I just wanted to ask if you're aware of it, and I see by the nodding of heads that you are, so there probably have been other people here and said some things. Second, I wanted to ask if there's anything the commission can do about it. And third, I wanted to ask if there's anything that you're planning to do or in the process of doing or will do. That's about the extent of my comments.
Anything you'd like to add? We don't normally do a back and forth, but I think it's important
I
that we.
apologize. I'm a bit.
No, that's fine. But this is an issue, and we've heard about it from a number of your neighbors and just people that drive Highway 22. I mean, you can't avoid it.
No.
You cannot drive on Highway 22 and avoid this. It is very bad. And of course, it apparently gets worse, when it's really warm.
It does.
I can tell you that in my inquiries into this a year ago, were that there was still a CAFO permit, so contained animal feeding operation permit, that was active for the dairy that would be expiring in April of 2025. So that was in my pursuit and conversations with the DEQ to try and get answers on how does this happen, and with the Department of Agriculture, which issued the CAFO permit, was told, the CAFO permit is still active and it would be expiring, and then we will explore it at that point. My expectation is that nothing has been explored. At the time when I pursued this with DEQ, they weren't really interested in investigating it. So I don't know what's happened since then. I've encouraged a number of people that have concerns and call the DEQ. I mean, again, we wouldn't tolerate this from any industrial operation in our neighborhoods, would we?
No.
And there isn't a contained animal feeding operation working there any longer. And I have no idea what another entity's permit capability is for using that pond.
Yeah.
My expectation is, again, coming from agriculture myself, there isn't one, but you know, we need to get the agencies to pay attention here and ask some questions and see what's going on. And maybe if there's a permit, great, tell us what it is and how it's being complied with. What are the parameters of it? I think we all are entitled to know, you know, how much should we tolerate? You know, in the community. That's where I'm at right now. I haven't spent any time since the April date looking into it any further. All I can tell you is what I hear, same as you, speculation and rumor.
Yeah.
Beyond that.
I know that it is an issue. I've spoken with, one person who has a business in Independence, and when the wind is right, the odor gets clear down there, and it's offensive down there as well. I know also that DEQ has an ordinance against, I don't know if it's obnoxious odors or what it is, but I know they have some rules regarding that. So I had intended, or I do intend to follow up, but I thought first that I would talk here and see if you had any information that you could share that was ongoing. So I'll pursue that. The other thing that I have a question about, and I suppose this is properly a DEQ question, is how the processing, you know, the permit processing thing takes place. Does it mean if the lagoon sits there and is not closed, can they just permit to anybody who wishes to use it? And what are the parameters about that? So I intend to ask those questions. But just to clarify then, that the board is not doing anything, nor would it normally do anything regarding that. It's a DEQ issue.
Yeah, and my understanding over the years of this kind of thing is that it falls under Oregon's right to farm. And we don't have ordinances that allow us an opportunity to intercede.
Yeah. Okay.
So we have legal counsel sitting right there, though, that can certainly correct me if I'm wrong.
That's how I would view it. Generally speaking, in Oregon, regulation of agricultural practices is done by the state, and local governments are divested of that authority. So we don't have the ability to enact any kind of regulations on agricultural practices as a whole.
It seems a bit odd that dog poop and animal parks would be considered under right to farm to me.
But I believe that facility is mostly processing agricultural waste of some kind. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time. And I will certainly follow up with DEQ. Perhaps some others in the community who have similar or same concerns.
Let me know what you learn. I mean, we need to be educated about what you find out.
Yeah, well, I don't know if DEQ will be really responsive to one individual, but I can certainly call them.
And I promise you, I will follow up as well with the contacts I've had at DEQ and say, come on.
Yeah.
So thank you for that, for bringing it back to us.
Yeah. Thanks for the time.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, moving on, looking for approval of the agenda.
Move approval.
And I will second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes. Approval of minutes of August 19th.
So moved.
And I will second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. It passes. And approval of consent calendar.
I move approval.
And I will second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next up is Fly Salem presentation. Brett DeHart. Good morning.
Good morning. Like I could fire through those motions. Nice job. Good morning, commissioners. Nice. It's been a while since we've been in front of you. Thank you for the opportunity to give you an update. I'm going to plan to give you an update on what happened, make an ask, and answer any of the questions you might have. Real quickly, I'll just give you, I know the topic at Salem-Willamette Valley Airport is what the heck happened to Avello. The answer is actually much simpler than some people want to believe, but Avello decided to distribute its aircraft to the East Coast. So they had 2 aircraft on the West Coast serving 10 communities, And those two aircraft can make more money on the East Coast, so they closed down all of their entire Western network. It had nothing to do with Salem as the primary message there. We literally could have sold every seat on every flight and still lost service. We were doing extremely well. We had every reason to believe it was going to be sustainable. And so it kind of took everybody by surprise. Avelo has made some decisions, such as deciding to allocate aircraft to fly deportation flights that became unpopular, and other decisions, corporate decisions. For whatever reasons, their corporate strategy shifted to the East Coast and that network. They were frankly just making, I think our consultant said, 2.3, 2.6 times the margin flying out of the Northeast corridor to the sunny places. So we lost that service. Some of the narratives that exist out there in the public perception are not true. They did not come for the incentive money and then leave. They actually left 30% of the incentive money on the table. They were still operating free at the Salem airport under a 2-year free agreement. They had an MRG, a minimum revenue guarantee. 30% of that was still available to them, and they left that on the table. And so it really had nothing to do with the incentives, and nothing to do with Salem. We did extremely well out of Burbank, and I myself worked those flights, a number of them, and it was great to see very happy people leaving from the Mid-Valley, from areas even west of Polk County. We get people from the coast, we get people from Portland Metro, which is a surprise to me, but 1 out of 5 passengers that were loading onto the flights at Salem-Willamette Valley Airport came from Portland Metro. We have new data. One of the things the experience provided us was data. How full were the planes? Where did the people come from? And what broad region did it draw from? So what was really encouraging was the economic development factor. I personally believe that this initiative has everything to do with economic development and tourism. But the city put in $1.9 million to upgrade the terminal to TSA standards, and so that it could accommodate any carrier, and we still could. In exchange for that, these 2 years, they've qualified for additional FAA funds that'll total $2.3 million. That's $1,150,000 additional for the 2 years, calendar years that they had service. Pretty good return on investment, actually. In addition, Congresswoman Salinas has earmarked $850,000 for the terminal improvements as well. So we're talking about $3 million in federal funds that would not have come to the Mid-Valley because the city invested in its asset. So again, a great return in that regard. TOT, occupancy tax. Revenue is way up. I don't think that we could prove it, but it's coincidental that the TOT revenue is way up in record numbers during this period, especially in the last 9 to 12 months. And perhaps most importantly, using the state of Oregon factors for visitor spending in Oregon, estimate the new spending in the Mid-Valley to be $32 million over the first 19 months of service. And that is a simple calculation. The state of Oregon says per new visitor, average spending is $850, and multiply by that by the people who originated their flights in Las Vegas or Burbank. We're not counting anybody who departed from Salem-Willamette Valley Airport. So those are people from LA Basin and Las Vegas and came to Oregon. That is a huge economic impact. And that's before we assign any sort of multiplier in terms of how many times dollars spent in the community turnover. So that's $1.75 million of new spending in the Mid-Valley per month as a result of very limited air service. So the vision of what regular air service and daily service could be is mind-boggling in terms of the economic impact it could create in our whole region. We get asked a lot, and I'm in front of you guys, and you don't own the airport, and the airport does not exist in your county, and I recognize that. However, we do share part of Salem, and I made the same update for Marion County commissioners. They want to know, what does the city have on the table? What is the city doing? And of course, the aforementioned investments they put in already, they are offering 2 years free operations, which means there's no landing fees. They waive terminal rent and things like that. It's a very, very standard incentive that airports across the nation offer, primarily because it's the maximum the FAA allows. So all the airports just put it on the table. But that's on the table from the city council. Parking improvements, they're currently providing general fund support for probably the first time in the airport's history to have additional airport staffing. So we have adequate safety and maintenance operators and fire and police training and scheduling. And they had a work session a little over a week ago and asked for more information to come back and what does it take to keep this going on September 8th. We hope to have more information coming from the consultant to the city council. All right, so that's that. The need is we would like to find a replacement carrier. We feel we have data now, not just to justify public investment in terms of the economic impact, but data to show to other carriers that it's viable. We know how many passengers are coming, we know how much they paid, and they know where they're coming from. So it's a relatively small environment in terms of how many airlines there are and how many airlines are going to fly at the places that we will be most successful. And those 4 markets are LA Basin, Phoenix, Las Vegas, and the San Francisco Bay Area. So we do have an interested carrier. We're reaching out to all of them. It's very, very likely, most certainly it'll be another low-cost carrier. The cost of operations at the airport are extremely low. Especially, it's probably 1/10 of what some of these carriers are paying at PDX. We also have data that show that people are tired of going driving to PDX. We have data in 2019 and 2024 that shows where people are flying out of the airports that they've chosen. And Eugene jumped from around 7 to 8% in 2019 to 24% in 2024. All those people have chosen Eugene over PDX. Now the whole boat, the tide rose for all of the airline industry during this period of time, but that's an incredible percentage change, meaning people are willing to drive down Highway 99 or I-5 to get to Eugene. They're looking for alternatives to Portland, which has been our contention all along. So we don't have a guarantee. We've been asking for years, talking to the carriers. And I will tell you, we talk to all carriers who will speak to us in a couple of different conferences per year. We talked to Frontier, which I think would be a good fit to give us Vegas and Denver. We talked to Allegiant, who will give us, could potentially give us a lot of destinations they currently serve out of Portland. We've talked to, JetBlue and Spirit and Breeze Airways are the ones that the most attention right now because Breeze has picked up 3 vacated Avelo flights out of Burbank, 4 Avelo destinations out of Burbank and announced that service to be stored by March. No one's telling us, hey, if you have this kind of incentive fund, we will come. They were telling us you need an incentive fund and the more the better. So the one indication we thought we would need at least $1 million of minimum revenue guarantee. Our current one was funded by private sector dollars and a federal grant, which we do not have time to get. The urgency is there's no service there now, which means the TSA in a few months, if they need that equipment somewhere else, they'll just pick it up and move it, and getting it back will be a political nightmare that might cost a couple of years. So losing the TSA equipment would be a huge deal. Losing the city's commitment to staff the airport at the level it is would be a huge deal. So that's why getting a carrier that could restore at least our Burbank service by next summer, not only is it viable, but it is critical to keep it going. We still look in the future. I'll tell you an example in just a minute. Anyway, so we're putting on the table, what if, because we don't think we can come up with $1 million. We don't think of all the resources, all the interested parties, there's $1 million to be had. So we suggested, and by we're talking about a consortium of the Travel Salem, the markets, the region, the Salem area Chamber of Commerce, and the city, and primarily. So we put on the table, what if we came up with $500,000 for 3 years? That would be 1.5. It'd be a 3-year agreement, minimum revenue guarantee. And they found that interesting, intriguing. That would certainly move you up the list was the answer without a commitment. The best I feel, and we're being completely transparent here, is that we want to be able to tell them, we've talked to all the interested parties and entities, and we can put on the table $500,000 for 3 years and let them tell us no. And if they tell us no, they have to tell us a number. I personally feel that it will work. I personally feel that it'd be incentive enough to counteract the risk that always exists when you're going into a new market. So we believe we've identified already 20% of that necessary money. Some of that is remaining MRG. The people are saying, I contributed to the MRG. You please roll it over to the next carrier. Go get us the next carrier. There's about $100,000 potentially that of the old MRG funds that we can raise for that. And there's some money coming from tourism money. So committed from Travel Salem in their budget. And so that's a huge head start. We believe that Travel Salem through non-TOT funds could come up with 100,000 of that 500,000. I've asked Marion County for $100,000 a year for 3 years out of lottery funds, because like I said, I believe this is both economic development and tourism. They have not said no, they have not said yes. They've responded reasonably favorably. They were not aghast when I made the ask. So we're optimistic, and they want to see what City of Salem's going to do. And they want to partner with them to make this happen, but they are supportive of returning commercial air service to the airport. So when I ask you guys to be on the table, put something, I know I've talked to Commissioner Polk, and I understand your economic development funds have been allocated for the next 2 or 3 years and committed to good projects. So I don't have an answer since I'm not an expert in your administration. We would love to see a $25,000 commitment from any source for a 3-year period, which would represent 5% of what our need would be. We would love for it to not be zero, so that we can go to the county and go to the city and say, Polk County supportive, Marion County supportive. You know, they're all waiting for you to lead. That is my, secret and evil plan. So, so somewhere in there, and I don't know if you're going to have budget savings somewhere over the course of your fiscal year, if you're going to have open positions that create a little money you can squeeze out, if there's to be an unforeseen increase in state allocation over the next couple of years, if there could be a transfer or a loan from other funds temporarily to make this happen. But I appreciate the consideration. And given that, I would like to tell you one story and then answer your questions. Why I believe it's going to work, it's on the back of the sheet I gave you, but I'm looking at Provo, and oddly enough, our current acting airport manager worked at Provo at the time. Provo, Utah is 46 miles from Salt Lake City. Salem is 46 miles from Portland. Provo had no service, and they put money in their terminal to attract commercial air service in 2011-ish. They received service from Frontier Airlines that flew to Denver. That lasted 20 months. And then Frontier left. After they made the investment, they recruited the carrier, and it ended, which is extraordinarily parallel to our situation exactly this summer. Mind-blowing whatsoever. But then Allegiant came in and said, well, we'll try out Provo. And today, 12 years later, this all happened in 2013 to 2015. Allegiant came, Breeze came, American came. Today, they have 3 carriers and 17 destinations out of Provo, Utah. Now, their MSA is 50% larger than Salem Kaiser's. However, Salt Lake is not as big as Portland. So combined MSAs between Portland and Salem Kaiser's, 2.9 million people. Combined MSA of Provo and Salt Lake City is 2.1 million people. We think there are very comparable parallels to draw here. And even if we were to get half of what Provo has accomplished, we'd have a couple of carriers and 8 or 9 destinations out of Salem Willamette Valley Airport. It's an extraordinary tale, and we are urging people to take a look at the 10-year arc, and not the today, and where, how tough is the budget today, and what did we just suffer through with this loss? It's exactly the same loss Provo had when Frontier stopped flying there. So with the vision, we've now proven we have numbers. We know how many passengers are flying. I mean, it's hard when people see an air carrier leave, like, well, we must not have the demand. In reality, our region, which includes all of Polk County, buys enough tickets, airline tickets every day to fill 27 37s. We just need a tiny fraction of that, really, to choose Salem over Portland and Eugene. And we'll have a vibrant, powerful economic driver and what we believe to be profitable. Not all locations turn a profit that run a regional airport. We believe we will. And if you just look at Eugene, it's a website, they did an economic study. They think the power of their airport provides $1.6 billion a year of economic impact in Eugene. And they are currently they've got recommendations to bring in $270 million of improvements to the terminal. Bend Redmond was on a 2-phase project for terminal expansion that will total $180 million of new investment in that airport. They're not doing that because they're losing money. It's so hard to look at, hey, is it going to make money this year? Is it going to make money next year? For the city of Salem, it's a challenging public policy, conundrum. However, if you look at the 10-year arc and the potential, it's so vast. It's hard to say, how can you not do it? And I will end my comments there and see if you have any questions.
Sure. I have some questions. I appreciate you coming to the board, and I've been tracking this airport project for, since Avelo came on board. And I do think that commercial service would be a huge benefit. That's sustained commercial service for the region. I do have a couple of questions. First, on the economic development data. Did Travel Salem, were they able to isolate visitors for wine experience in the Willamette Valley through that carrier? Because you mentioned pretty high number of economic development revenue. Do we know the nature of that spending? People visiting, spending money in general? Were there packages sold to folks for a wine experience, et cetera? Do you have any information on that?
I don't.
Okay.
We can ask Travel Salem.
I can ask them. Yeah.
I know the wine industry continues to be very supportive.
Yeah.
And is already offering to potentially host yet another fundraiser to help in this effort because they see the value. We had a Fly Salem Foundation meeting, which is a 501c3 with the purpose of increasing commercial air service and all airport activities for the airport. And they're still very much believing in it as their future. It requires commercial air service. Yeah.
And another question on the Avelo experience. You said they left 30% of the revenue guarantees. Is that, are you saying that indicates profitability? Or I'm curious what the time horizon of that that fund was, and sort of the rate of dipping into that, and if it remained flat or they stopped dipping into it. I mean, was Avelo profitable? I think a lot of folks are asking that. Great question, Commissioner. It was not linear. I will tell you a couple of factors. It started, of course, at the launch of service October 2023. It was a negotiated minimum revenue. Doesn't mean necessarily they were profitable, but we will guarantee that you will, cover your operating costs. So it was negotiated between the city, its consultant, and the airline. What that floor is, and it was a month to month. Interesting enough, if you look if we were to take it month to month, they would have used less of it because, I beg your pardon, I'm saying this backwards. If you looked at it over the span, they would have used far less of it. But January and February are always going to be terrible, and they used huge amounts of it. But if you looked at, the holidays and the spring break period of time and averaged them all out, then they wouldn't have used that much. Two factors had them take more than we anticipated, honestly. In the summer of 24, Frontier Airlines decided to fly Portland to Burbank as a new route and sell $29 tickets. So Avelo felt they needed to price compete
And during the busiest, most full aircraft month of the year, they were dropping prices and they tapped the MRG in summer, which we did not anticipate. And we now have data that shows that after their announcement of flying deportation flights in April, in every market they were in the West, they had to start lowering prices. So they tapped an MRG in May and June, not because the planes were not full, because they had to buy customers because they had so much bad press, right? So those were two unanticipated draws. You would anticipate January and February being terrible travel months. So it was not linear. And those of us who contributed, we didn't think they'd use much of it at all because we were so certain in their success. The consultant thought that they would use all of it in the first, 6 months. So it was kind of a mixed thing. The total was 1.2 million, by the way.
Over 3 years?
2-year period.
2 years.
So it was scheduled to end in October. So they still had money to prove that they weren't going to lose money, and they still left.
It wasn't in their business plan to stay here anyway.
It was originally, the original
Originally,
talk is
sure, but
that we think this is going to be a base for us. We're going to put aircraft here. And by the way, Provo has aircraft. When aircraft live there, those are incredible jobs. Those per aircraft, we're told, is about 40 professional aviation jobs. And Breeze and Allegiant both have 3 or 4 aircraft that live in Provo, Utah, which, Salem has that potential. Did I answer your question about the
Yes.
MRG? Okay.
Yes, and then just for clarity, the federal funds, the city funds, these are all for capital costs in the terminal. And the revenue guarantee funds you're trying to get from Travel Salem, other economic development entities and counties?
Yes, right now,
County
we're,
funds?
we're looking for sources to get the $500,000 for 3 years. Tourism money, Travel Salem,
Mhm.
the city of Salem, Marion and Polk County, and then the private sector.
Okay,
Now, we already have about 100,000, private sector money that we can roll into it without having done any additional fundraising. So.
those are the questions I have.
Okay.
You've answered most of my questions, but I guess the other thing I'm always curious about, I was involved in this, for pre-Avello, engaged with the Department of Aviation and sat on a committee that helped some of the stuff happen. My concern then and still is today is, do we have any authority or any way to apply conditions or restrictions on how the MRG is accessed? And so you've just described one of the things that I feared early on is that, they can make up their own rules and tap out the MRG and go away and still leave us there with nothing and not enough time. I mean, you've done a great job of outlining the Provo model. That took time, right? They needed time and they got it and they built it, and look at them now. It doesn't mean it couldn't change, but it's not likely to change. That's the struggle we're in right now. We could basically be Groundhog Day here and do this all over again. If you have somebody that's willing to come to the table for half of what they said they wanted. So how do we do that? How do we build any conditions in an MRG that doesn't just leave us standing there with an empty bag?
The best thing we can do, MRG wise, is to fill the planes, right? And because we need less or potentially no MRG with full planes and less risk. The smaller amount of risk, the smaller the demands from the carrier. We don't have a lot of cards to play in negotiating for MRG in terms of, you will promise to see it here for 5 years, right? Or you're not going to leave early, right? It is a misperception that people have that the MRG makes them whole and that they're just coming for that incentive money and then they'll just pivot and go somewhere else. It's far more problematic and expensive for an airline to do that. They're not going to come without it because they need risk mitigation, but they're not coming just to tap that fund. And when it's over, hey, sign on the degree out the door. We're looking for a long-term partner. There's a lot of value proposition of Breeze Airways, which I'm not supposed to say out loud in public. But it's in the paper. Everyone's talking about Breeze because they've picked up some of the Avello vacancies, right? So the question is, why did they pick up Eugene and not Salem? And Velo was making more money. Well, one, Salem was tapping an MRG. So on the surface, that looks like, well, they hadn't reached profitability yet, right? And two, Eugene was a more mature Avelo market. They had been flying since Avelo's first month of business. So you have a startup, then you have more, the longer you go, you have the more brand loyalty you have, the more public awareness you have. They were able to command a higher fare out of Eugene because it was more, their routes were more mature out of Eugene than it was out of Salem. And they did, and Las Vegas, Eugene didn't have Las Vegas service. We did. And Las Vegas was less robust than in Burbank. I think I'm rambling a little bit on your question. I apologize, Commissioner. But the MRG, I would anticipate that Breeze would use all of it. That they will use it for price support. They pretty much told us this face to face. They said, when we're starting out, our goal is to fill the planes. And if we can use MRG as price support to make sure the planes, because they want to create travelers and they want to create travelers that are used to flying Breeze, that'll come back again.
That's more appealing to me, just that it's a lower cost to the consumer as they're developing a customer base in the market. So to Craig's point, that seems to make sense to me, but some of the complexities about who governs that fund, how it's determined, when and under which conditions it can be tapped into, et cetera. But that last point just appeals to me personally.
Yeah, it may not appeal to the contributors who think, well, why should I contribute thousands of dollars for somebody else's? And it's because they want it to happen in the community, or it's good for the business community, or it's good for, the wine industry and so forth. So, yeah, it's a little different than we anticipated when we sat here 4 or 5 years ago. We anticipated people and entities and governments that contributed to the MRG would get it all back because the data showed that we were going to fill the planes. I think, and every carrier, Allegiant doesn't require an MRG. We would still see Allegiant. We would love to see them move all of their Portland lift to Salem and operate. They'd literally be saving over $20 a head for a no-cost carrier on just operating costs. We would love to see that, and Allegiant doesn't require an MRG. And other airlines like Breeze say, we do require an MRG, and we're going to use it. So don't anticipate there being a balance at the end. Which I appreciate the frankness. And of course, in the case you're curious, I still think that we would do better with daily service to a hub with a ticket share with a major carrier. Example, United Airlines did Denver or San Francisco. To get a regional carrier to do that, like SkyWest, which flew the flights for Delta in 2007 and 8, communities are putting up $4 to $5 million. They'll say, yeah, we'll give you a daily shift, we'll give it a go, but the revenue guarantee has to be $4 to $5 million. So I'll be sure to pick up my Powerball ticket on the way home. But we don't see that happening anytime soon unless it comes from the governor's office, honestly.
What is your time horizon for TSA to start pulling equipment?
Mid-November. So we don't know if they'll pull it, but they'll keep it in place for 90 days. So, and at that point, they could move it. If we have indications of interest from an airline, that's really all we need. We need 2 big tasks to put some assurance. Yes, we think we have this $500,000 a year for 3 years, put it on the table, and for the carrier to say, yes, we'll write a letter of interest. And that should keep the TSA equipment here. And I mean, there's just a lot of irony in the whole situation. They almost completely staffed Salem. They hired local people to run TSA out of Salem. They were almost fully staffed when the announcement came. And so those TSA employees would like to continue to work in Salem. Right now, they'll be reallocated to Portland and Eugene flights, but yeah. We'd like to keep those jobs here regionally. We'd like to keep the airport jobs, and we really need to keep the TSA equipment. Or I foresee the effort taking its marbles and going home.
Okay. And if we or anyone else was interested in participating in this funding exercise, is it a pledge or is it cash first?
It would be a pledge first, I think, because we don't want to fund it Well, I guess I guess that's a commission, a question for me to pose to the committee in the city. Because right now, we're honestly telling you, you could put it in the bank and we could have this money, and an airline was not. I would say when the airline commits, we need a check. Right? I guess so. The way I would foresee it is, let's pledge this. I mean, both in terms of the county and the city, because they're not going to fund it and put the money in the bank. It would be a pledge, yes, we're committed to doing this, so we can tell the airline we have the money, and the checks go into the bank by next summer.
That's essentially how we did it the last time.
Yeah.
It was, some of it was cash in the bank, some of it was pledge, right?
Right.
Yeah.
We had the federal grant would been awarded, so we were able to allocate that, and we needed to raise $350,000, and we had pledges prior to that. I know you're on a different fiscal year, right, than the city of Salem, which runs June. No, end of June?
July 1st.
Oh, July 1st. Okay. So important to note that this will fall in 26, 27 budget primarily. Right. So we hope to get service by next summer. So maybe before Memorial Day, maybe after Memorial Day. But as far as funding the MRG, it could easily go into the county's fiscal year 26, 27. And you have lots of time to plan for it.
That was a useful input.
Yeah.
I don't have anything else, Greg. No.
Thank you so much for the time. I appreciate, and I'll always be available if you had additional questions you didn't think of this time.
For your work.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have any non-listed items?
Yes, I just wanted to let you know that I got a proposal from David Evans and Associates to do our bridge improvement plan, where they're going to, where they're going
Hold the
to.
microphone stuff for me.
Gotcha. Just letting you know, I got a proposal from David Evans and Associates. They are going to give us a bridge improvement plan, which would prioritize our replacements, rehabs, and repairs for the county's bridges, including our non-NBI bridges, which are the ones that are smaller and don't go through the state inspection annually or biannually. So they've given us a proposed price. It's $97,000. I'm happy with it. So I've sent them contracts and I'll plan to sign those, but I just want to let you give you guys a heads up that we were going to execute that agreement when they get it back to us signed.
That's great.
Yeah, they'll be good with this. I don't know what's going to happen at the state with, this.
The pace of our ability to complete those projects will depend on that.
Right. I mean, we've been unsuccessful in getting an HBR, local bridge program project for quite a few years, and our highest ranking bridge keeps getting bumped off the list. And so we just got to look forward and say, are we heading towards a wall? Are we heading towards a cliff? Do we need to start doing some of these or just getting some heavier rehabilitations going and looking at self-funding those or, things like that. So any questions?
Work.
Yeah, fully support it. Speaking of bridges, I took a trip with BLM to Valley of the Giants yesterday and some folks from Jeff Merkley's office. And as you know, that big debris flow took out that culvert on the North Fork of the river.
I'm not aware of it.
Yeah, so it's closed. That Valsette's route is closed. But they have funding for the bridge. They have, the Celeste Tribe's going to deliver it, but because of a recent emergency order at the executive level, the feds, all agreements have to be reviewed that involve federal money. I think it's federal highway money they got actually because it was considered an emergency. So if they can get that approval soon, they can start work this season. Otherwise, it'll be next season. But it was a good trip and they're moving. They think they're moving slow. I said, for government, you're moving pretty fast.
Did you say it was a culvert?
The culvert got completely destroyed by the flow and the thing spans 150 yards across the river. So they've removed some of that debris and they're putting in a prefab concrete bridge over it.
The North Fork had a bridge on it, I thought.
This is a different, I can show you the map of where exactly it is.
I know both of those were taken out in the 96 flood.
Mm.
And I remember going up there when both of those bridges were under, they built both of them the same summer.
Okay.
I think one is on the North Fork and one is on a tributary to North Fork.
Mhm.
Possible, maybe one of those was a box culvert and I just remembered it being a bridge.
It was, I think it had a flat bottom,
Yeah, okay.
fairly large, but they don't think the bridge will be more resilient. So
Yeah.
anyway, I'll connect you if they actually start the project, if you're interested.
Yeah, I didn't realize that had happened.
Yeah.
Right, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other non-listed?
Yes, sir.
Okay, do we have a need for an executive session?
Yes, sir. Pursuant to ORS 192-660 sub 2H, the board will not meet in executive session to consult with legal counsel concerning legal rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely